We are back. I just want to start off because, like I said, I felt there was fire going on. So I just felt I want to say, you guys, this has been a great show. Just in the middle, this is the third episode, and go ahead, Leo, show them what we popping
Josh,
with.
I wanted to, or Chief. I'm sorry.
Son of a chief.
Son of a chief.
Yes, so Chief.
The future Wayne State alumni.
Yes,
sir. This Nico and the Trouble Bubble is my favorite book written by Ashlee Henderson.
It looks nice.
It's about this boy that chases after this bubble, and he goes through obstacles and incidents on the way of chasing this bubble. And each obstacle that he goes through represents a life learning experience that we can relate to. So the backstory and the knowledge that this book provides leads me to believe this is my favorite book. So, could you please explain to me what inspired you to create this book? What's the backstory behind this? I'm curious about this.
My life, I tell people when you're chasing a dream, you're trying to build a dream, there's a certain element of insanity that has to exist.
Absolutely.
You're trying to create something out of nothing. You can't see it. And we are taught to live off of sure things.
Right.
We don't take a step until we see the ground in front of us. And my faith and my spirituality definitely led me to see things differently and realize, because one of the nuances that is interesting, I never tell people what to get from the books because I don't want to limit them in that way.
Yeah.
It's to build that special piece for them, whatever they get from it. But one of the things I've never heard anybody say about the bubble or realize about the bubble, the trouble bubble, is that it took something that's supposed to happen, that's guaranteed to happen, and created a problem when it didn't happen. That was my life. Being a person who deals with anxiety every day, I had to realize just because something's supposed to happen, that doesn't mean that it's going to happen.
Right.
Nico blows the bubbles, right? All the other ones burst. That's what they're supposed to do.
Okay.
But there's one bubble, just one, that's still there. It doesn't burst. And I think that's how we journey through life. When something doesn't go the way we want it to go, when it doesn't happen immediately, our issues with instant gratification, it becomes a problem, and we can wreck every other moment following that.
Wow, that's crazy, and I can relate to that. I used to play basketball my whole entire life, and I went into high school playing basketball as the captain of the basketball team, and the way my season that I envisioned in my head and how it was going to turn out didn't quite happen at the end of the season. I thought I was going to be able to play basketball on the next level, but it didn't go the way I wanted to be. I was not satisfied. I felt like all of the work that I put in, my dedication that I put into basketball was crushed when my senior year season was over. But instead of taking that and moping about it, I utilize that disappointment and utilize that as my strength. And I realize not everything in life is fair, but it's up to you to bounce back from it.
Absolutely.
And that's what I can relate to, Nico, and
Absolutely.
Maybe that's why I really love this book.
I think it has a certain aspect that any person can relate to. I think big kids, I call adults big kids. So
Am I a big kid?
Yeah, you're a big kid. I'm a big kid too.
So I guess I am a big kid.
So I think big kids love Nico and the Trouble Bubble because it makes something click. Like, oh, maybe today I hit rush hour traffic on the way home and I was late somewhere. It's a choice. It's a choice to say, this is a moment, and I'm not going to let it negatively affect everything after that. And so Nico, my godson, actually, Nicholas, he's 4 now, turned 4 on Saturday.
What is Nico's thought? I mean, he's old enough to realize, holy crap, I'm on a book.
At 3, he knew the story. He knew the story. He's like, Nico's bubbles fell. And he said,
I wish it was Leo in the Trouble Bubble. That would have been awesome.
Was that his first book that he read?
Oh, no. So his mom, Miss Syaja Jackson, she is my lifeline. Nico and the Trouble Bubble is actually dedicated to her because she changed my life by telling me, you don't need anyone else. I had a very big problem, I'm unhealthy. If I had somebody else. Okay. Oh, I want to work out, but if I had someone else, she said, you don't need anybody else. And it made something click. And the relationship that I have with her is loving the fact that she's an educator, right? A lot of parents it's very easy to underestimate your child in their development. Oh, don't use words that are too big because they won't know. Even if you're around me, I try to use different words with children and create that link so that those dendrites start to expand. So that brain is pumping that blood and they're understanding more and more each day. Because it's a very small window that we have to leave a lasting impression on them. And so with Nico, he was reading and learning language skills at home before he ever went to daycare because of Sai. And I commend her. She's an awesome mom for that. He has awesome parents. But he knows. That's Nico. So he knows.
Nico.
Mm-hmm.
So talking about, development when you're younger, I noticed that your other book, The Adventures of the Ruler Twins, was dedicated to your grandma. And I can't help but, I want to know a little bit more about your relationship with her and how she might have helped your development and inspired you to do what you're doing now.
So it's probably a different story than you guys are anticipating because it was very interesting. When I was growing up, me and my grandma, we weren't very close, but there are certain nuggets, I call them golden nuggets, that she gave me that left a big lasting impression on me. We see grandmas as the person who spoils you 100% of the time and always tells you what you want to hear. That's not my grandma. She might not say it as sharply as most people would, but she's not that person. But growing up, she was still working when I was growing up, and I remember spending the night at her house some weekends. And I'm the baby. It's only 3 cousins on my dad's side, and I'm the baby by 6 years from my oldest cousin and 3 years from my sister. And so they always loved to play video games. They would be up, she would let them stay up and play video games. And at 8:30, it's time to go to bed. Granny, we got to go to bed. And I would lay in the bed with her, and she would read me my favorite story every single time, which was the Billy Goat Gruff. Every time, the troll, I knew he was under the bridge, but it just messed me up. I just was so nervous. And the reason that I had that experience, because my grandmother could always change her voices for the different characters. Okay. She had the inflections in her voices. So when I read, that is me. I'm like, oh no, Nico said, because you have to give that emotion. You have to convey it.
It brings it to life.
Yeah, and to me, it just fueled my imagination. Growing up, when I did grow up, when I was 18, I would say our relationship definitely took off. I was out in the world for the first time, going away to college. I wasn't living with my parents at all. I came home and I lived with a cousin. And my grandma, I just remember being so nervous about things or worried about things. And she always had this faith. I realized it's crazy. She always had this faith. Because my grandma, she worries, And even if she was worried about me, or even if she is worried about me, she'll never tell me. She'll tell somebody else, but she will never tell me. And it's just priceless for people to have faith in you and faith in what you're doing when you don't have the faith in yourself. Huge thing.
It's important to have that support system behind you.
It is. And she's very modest. It's kind of funny because I'm like, oh, did you tell everybody the book is dedicated to you? She's like, what book? And I'm like, you have a whole book dedicated to you. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how
Exactly.
And another question I have about the adventures of the Ruler Twins. I guess it's not a question, but there's an interesting story behind how and when it was written.
Oh, yeah. So I've always loved to tell stories, literally, like, about anything. I would make up a story, just always had a really big imagination. And so I actually wrote The Adventures of the Ruler Twins in 6th grade.
You hear that? 6th grade.
Good
and it was for a project, and it was very interesting because I must have been working on vocabulary or something, because it was originally called A Lesson in Interdependence. And that is still, even though it's great vocabulary word, that's one thing I carry with me now, because the idea that you do something exclusively by yourself, that no one influenced you, did anything to help the situation, engage with you, is false. We talk about independence, but it's really the interdependence that we need to encourage. How can we work together? How can we build? That's what community is all about. The African adage, it takes a village to raise a child. No one person does anything alone.
Well, and it takes 2 people to make one, right?
Absolutely. And now it takes like 5 people to make one because everybody's so busy.
I see something even more deeper. Because I think we always want to see the vision. That's what made the show so important is vision, and to be visual, and that's tough. Because I say one thing you said that you mastered over, and we sort of skimmed over it, was you had anxiety problems. Those type of little demons that we face with, we usually go to a hospital or go to a therapist or something like that. But it takes a true person to actually go inside and try to figure out it first, because you did a self-diagnosis in some way, shape, or form. To go back and then to get into a situation to solve that problem, and that's the toughest work. I think the hardest work, because that's like the hell and heaven inside ourselves and trying to figure that out. Yep. And it seemed like you did that wisdom going through life or death in a sense, and that mindset, all or nothing, because that's what we do when we make moves every day. If we understand the true impact of what you're doing. So to do that, now what would make you at this young of an age? Because you're not like, you sound like you're 50, but and that's good. I'm saying
her wisdom.
Your wisdom sound like you're about 50, but I think you can you tell us a little bit how you get to that point, because I think a lot of that has to be through intuition or through something higher or something inside yourself that you really got that. So I think they would want to know to get that vision going.
Misery is a big beast. I will say that was like the black bottom for me. When I just realized every day, I tell people I never had to worry about a position as far as, having a good position and career. I could go back to corporate right now if I wanted to. Never had to really worry about finances, but I've always had to worry about my happiness. That was the biggest struggle. And it just compounded so bad. And I remember I was so unhealthy. I was 228 pounds. Woo! 200, and it was. I'm only 5'2", and I'm not even really 5'2". That's if I sit up really straight. That's a lot. That's a lot. And I'll tell people that's how Thomas and Mia's Happy Tummy Hunt started. That's how what goes in must come out started. Because I realized I had to learn all of these things about health, about happiness, about exercising and drinking water. And it seems like it's something really easy, but it's not. It's not, because like I said earlier, we've started to sacrifice our lives to make a living.
Our well-being.
Our well-being, our family structure, our health to work and to have notoriety and to have fame and influence. And it's like, where's that balance? How do you achieve it?
And what does that mean?
And what does that mean? And I was so curious about it, because I'm telling you, in today's world, I can't imagine somebody working 30, 40 years for a company. I can't imagine it being me. I can't. I won't even, being a children's author. I do more than just children's books. That's what's out now. I'm working on a novel as well. You talked about, having to figure out what's going on with inside you and how to fix it. I call that our personal work. I'm writing a whole book about the issues with us having to do our personal work, holding ourselves accountable. Because a lot of people think that it's the experience, it's the resources, it's the finances, it's the environment, it's the community, it's society, it's everything else that we're missing or that's not right that keeps us from succeeding. But I believe our biggest barrier is the personal work we must do to get where we're going.
On that note, profound
on
here.
Go to commercial break, 'cause that's a lot to take in.
Yes.
Ashlee Henderson, CEO of DT Liberty Publishing.
All right.
Killing it right now.
Only
we'll be right back
27.
on Nation Radio World Reality Television.